We're on a mission from God.
And now for something completely different.
Let's get ready to rumble! Yeah, baby, yeah!
This
Good
is
morning.
Pastor.
Oh,
hi,
go ahead,
Matt.
John.
No, you go ahead. Let's not fight over this.
This is one of the
Okay,
hazards of doing this from a distance.
Yeah, that's right, because we don't know what each other are doing.
But this is Pastor Matt Youngblood Clark from Ascension Lutheran Church in picturesque South St. Louis.
And I'm Pastor, getting a little more jolly, John Lekumsky, and I'm actually here in my studio in the upstairs of my house in New Athens, Illinois. Although actually, literally at this point, in the real world, not in radio world, but in the real world, we'll be on our road to Minnesota, Matt.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
This Saturday is our trip as we head back up north to get away from the heat. It has been stinking hot and humid. I thought you'd give us a little break, but it didn't happen that way. Real quick question, because I know you've got some important things you want to share with us from the Book of Acts.
Sure.
Are they still wearing masks? Are you still wearing masks in St. Louis?
Oh, we are still masked in St. Louis. Yes. So, yeah, we are. So most places, grocery stores and things along those lines, people are wearing masks. And I'm glad you brought that up because this weekend we are returning to worship for the first time.
Oh, cool.
So I'm super excited about that. Thankful for that. We're going to be gathering for worship on a Saturday night. We'll be recording that worship service as well and then playing that on the internet. So if people feel the need to still stay home or if they're in those high risk groups, they can still participate in that way. We're also on KFUO radio, actually, during the month of June and July. So that that service will be recorded and then broadcast at 8:15 on KFUO on Sundays. And then what we're going to do, we're trying to get creative here, John. We're going to gather together once on a Sunday morning in person at 9:30, and we're going to meet in our school gymnasium. Not ideal, but the occupancy is 400, so we can do a fraction of that in that larger room and have everyone spaced out appropriately. So anyway, we're eager to get together again and be in person as the people of Christ and hear God's word. So we're doing it that way. We're going to ask people to still wear masks, especially if there's going to be singing and things. That'll hopefully alleviate some worries. We don't want people to regret coming to worship, but to feel safe. And hopefully that won't become a distraction to people, but we'll be able to focus on God's word and receive his gifts. So that's the plan, John.
Well, and the reason I asked is because you invited me to come and be part there of your opening worship, and I was wondering why you told me that I should just put a bag over my head.
Well, you never can be too safe, John.
That's what I was thinking. I am part of the high risk group, but I wondered about that for a long because long before there was coronavirus, people said, really, you ought to put a bag over your head.
But
I don't know.
Yeah, just keep in mind that bag isn't just for your sake, but it's for the sake of all those around you as well, John.
Oh, okay. So it's really an act of love then.
That's right.
It all makes perfect sense to me now. All right, Matt. Congratulations. I'm glad you guys are back to worship. I don't know what they're going to be doing here. There's debates going on. We're not quite as open yet in Illinois as you are over there in Missouri. But where are we going? Where are we going for wrestling with the basics this morning?
Yeah, that's right. Wrestling with the basics. I'm glad you worked that in because I don't think we announced that.
We probably don't.
So for wrestling with the basics,
let's say anybody stumbles across us, they probably know who we are.
Probably so. It's safe to say.
Turned it off. Yeah.
Our unique style of radio. So we're leaving Missouri. We're leaving Illinois. We are heading to Greece.
Yes.
We are going not to New Athens, but to old Athens
Yes.
in Greece. So that's where we're headed. So we're going to open up our Bibles to Acts chapter 17.
That's why we changed the pronunciation. That's why we say Athens here rather than Athens, because people kept coming and saying, "Where's the Parthenon?"
Kept getting confused, right?
Yeah, I said, "No, that's Athens. We're Athens. We're New Athens." I'm sorry. What did you say? Acts 17.
Acts chapter 17.
Okay.
So
where do you want me to read?
Well, first I'm going to, and there'll be a point, John. Don't worry. But first, we're going to have a little bit of trivia. All right.
Ooh, all right.
So
Good.
You like trivia, right? Everyone likes trivia.
I do.
Okay. So, what was the first gospel song to be in the number one spot of the pop song charts? So the first gospel song to top the charts, to top the popular charts. I'll give you a hint. It was in the year 1958, and no gospel song has done it since.
Did Elvis sing it?
No, it was not Elvis. It was someone from England sang it.
Really?
Really? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Boy, this brings back memories. Matt had a trivia night for us when he was over here as our vicar ages ago. I don't know. What was the first gospel song to hit the was it number one, you said, or just
number one? Number one. So other number one songs that year, if this helps, included an Elvis song, "Hard Headed Woman." and the song "Tequila," but everyone knows that one, right? Exactly. But the number one gospel song that topped the popular chart is "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands."
Oh,
yeah. So
that's a beautiful song.
This guy, kind of a one-hit wonder, I think, by this British singer. He's got the whole world in his hands, and we probably all know that song, and we could sing along with it, right?
He's got the whole world.
Yeah, I don't see that going to number one on the pop charts in 2020 necessarily.
No.
But yeah, we sing it in Sunday school and Vacation Bible School, and we know that song. He's got the whole world in his hands, right? And so keep that in mind. Keep that song in your mind as we talk about what Paul has to say in Acts chapter 17. All right? And then hopefully you'll have that song stuck in your head the rest of the Saturday. There's worse things to have stuck in your head, right? Anyway, all right. Well, let's pick up with verses 19 through 21. Okay. 19 through 21.
All right, just give me a second. I'm turning the pages even as we speak. Actually, we don't turn pages anymore. I'm scrolling the mouse even as we speak.
High tech.
And they took him and brought him to the Areopagus? Yes, Areopagus, saying, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? For you bring some strange thing. It's like wrestling with the basics. You bring some strange things to our ears. We wish to know, therefore, what these things mean." Now, all the Athenians and the foreigners who live there, it is exactly what people say about our
I know. Yeah, that's perfect.
Now, all the Athenians and the foreigners who live there would spend their time in nothing except telling or hearing something new.
Yeah, I think that's our new ad spot, our new commercial spot. We need to use that verse. You're bringing strange things to our ears.
Mark that down. The next time we have to do a promo. Yeah.
So Paul's here in Athens. I got to concentrate not to say Athens, but Paul's here in Athens, and they take him to the Areopagus, right? Do you have any idea what that means, John? Areopagus?
Let's see. There's a footnote here. Let's see. No, I'm sorry. I don't have any idea.
So it's named after one of those Greek gods, Ares. So it means Hill of Ares, and he was the Greek god of war. The god of war. Sometimes this is called Mars Hill too, right? And that's a reference to the Roman god of war, Mars. But the Areopagus, the Areopagus, it's the Hill of Ares. So that's where Paul's at here, and the people from Athens, whatever. That's what they spend their time doing. Is just talking about philosophy, talking about religion. Yep. It's kind of interesting, different ideas, telling or hearing something new. We like that too, I think, in our culture today. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
look at
exactly.
Facebook and Twitter. I mean, much of that is just telling or hearing something new. I mean, we can't wait for the next piece of news or the next piece of what's going on in entertainment or gossip or whatever. So it's kind of interesting that some things don't change. All right. Well, good.
And it also shows, so this is a culture that is pretty well established. Obviously, their basic needs are being met. Otherwise, they wouldn't have time to sit around and spend all their time telling or hearing something new. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. It's kind of a luxury, isn't it? I mean, they don't have to just scrape by. It's not just living hand to mouth. In Athens, it's a center of philosophy and learning and culture. And as we'll see, it's also the center of pagan worship, as they worship many different deities. But I think of it, again, America today, we're blessed to be pretty affluent, overall. We have abundance, and so we can spend time telling and hearing those new things, for better or for worse, sometimes. But yeah, I think it's a good point. So yeah, let's go on then to verses 22 and 23, and we hear what Paul encounters here on this hill.
So Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.' What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you."
So in addition to philosophy and just hearing and sharing new things, they're also in Athens. They are famous for their gods. They had a god for everything. Here's just a few of them, John. I Googled Greek gods, and there's just pages and pages. So here's
are these the top 10 gods?
These are sort of the top 10 gods. I'm going to give them to you from A to Z. Okay, I'm going to start with A. Apollo, the god of music and poetry.
There you go.
Kronos was the god of, what do you think? Kronos, the god of
time.
Very good. Yeah. Dionysus, the god of wine. Eros, the god of lust. All right. Yep. Hades, the god of the dead. Helios, the god of the sun.
Air? Oh, the sun.
Sun, yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like helium, right? The god of the sun. Plutos, the god of wealth. Poseidon was the god of the sea. Yeah. And then Zeus, here's Z, was the god of, well, I guess a lot of things, but we could call him the god of the sky, I suppose.
Okay. The heavenly god, maybe.
The heavenly god. So, I mean, you get the idea. They had a god for everything under the sun, including the sun itself, right?
Yes, yeah.
Everything. And so Paul sees in that, though, an opportunity, because what they've done is set up these different statues, these different idols to these different gods. And there's one, and I always love this text, there's one that's to the unknown God. They don't want to leave anyone out. If there's a God that they forgot about, they want to make sure that they're included too. And so it literally says to the unknown God.
Unknown God. Just in case we miss somebody, don't want your feelings to be hurt.
Exactly. All these different gods that, what I think is so interesting too, all these different gods are just, their domain is just a small sliver of the earth and of life, right? Just the god of the sea, just the god of the sun, just the god of death. That's kind of interesting. So if there's some sliver they forgot about, some unknown god, they build an altar even to that unknown one. So Paul, I think, is this brilliant, and he uses, of all things, these idols and these statues as an opportunity to proclaim God, the one true God, to proclaim Christ. I think that's just amazing that he uses something that we would think was so foreign to God. Those things should be knocked down, toppled over, and maybe they should be. But that's not what Paul does. Instead, he uses this as an opportunity to teach and proclaim the gospel. I think that's kind of interesting.
And it's interesting, Matt, because actually Lynn and I were just listening a lecture on this particular portion of Scripture from, by the way, Concordia Publishing House.
Oh, excellent. My wife will be glad to hear that, John.
Yeah, it's called Paul's Missionary Journeys. Search for it on the internet, and it's free.
Great.
They'll send you these little videos. Ken Sherb, I believe, is the guy leading it, and I thought it was interesting. He pointed out the word religious here, which maybe makes us a little uncomfortable. Well, wait a second, these are false gods. Could you really say they're religious? But he points out that word could also be understood as superstitious. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's kind of a dual meaning there. You may think that you are very religious, but of course we know actually you're just very, very superstitious. That's what
Superstitious.
you are. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This kind of false flattery that Paul's offering these people
Yeah.
as he begins to teach. So here's what he has to say. Here's how he uses that unknown God, that altar through the unknown God, as an opportunity to share the gospel. So, if you want to read then in verse 24 in particular, go ahead and read 24 and 20, I guess 25 as well, as Paul explains this unknown God.
Okay, it says the God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth. Okay, so he's really in charge of everything, not just a splinter of it, as you said,
Yep.
or a sliver. Does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything.
All right. So, he starts by saying, what you is unknown to you, I'm going to make known to you. And then he goes into just explaining that, forget about these gods of the sea and the sky and the sun. No, let me tell you about the one who made the sea and the sky and the sun, who's not in charge of just, one section of creation, but all of creation. That God who doesn't need a temple made by human hands and isn't served by human hands as though someone has to feed God or provide for God. No, this is God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. And I think it goes back to that song we started with, right? He's got the whole world in his hand, right? Not just parts of it. No, he's got the whole thing in his hands. He is the one true God. This is Paul's proclamation here. So I think that's pretty neat how he uses that pagan place as an opportunity to proclaim the one true God.
And the thing is, Matt, see, the problem is we have all been brought up in a monotheistic society. Right now there's this great struggle going on between Christianity and agnosticism and atheism. But from the very beginning, our whole culture, when we're talking about agnostics and atheists, we're not talking about people that believe in all the God of sun and the God of the moon or the earth or whatever. No, we all come from the same culture where there's one God. I mean, we may not believe in that God or that there is a God, but we don't understand this was a radical different way of looking at things that for most of history people did just what you said. They had their little sliver gods and they had all their idols. That this concept that came out of Judaism and then Christian and also within the Muslims that there's only one God. Boy, that was a brand new idea that just no one had thought of before. But what I like about this set of verses is it shows how we've still kept that kind of polytheistic view, even though we call it monotheistic, because at the heart of the polytheistic view is that you've got to give something to the God in order to get him to benefit and bless you. That's why you had multiple idols, because you'd make sacrifices to the multiple idols. You'd make sacrifice to the God of the ground so he would give you a good harvest. You'd make sacrifice to the Eros so that you'd have babies. That's the operating principle. So we don't think that way anymore. We don't think in terms of many, many gods, but we still do the same thing. We think we've got to give something to God in order to get something back. And Paul points out that's what's ridiculous. If he is God, why would he need anything? And if he is God, isn't he the one that is giving us everything? So how can you form your religion on the thought that it's all about the things you do for God, when really, as Christianity teaches so clearly, no, religion, faith is all about the God who gives us everything.
Yeah, and that's what makes Christianity, really, right? That it's God has given us everything, grace, and he's given us all in Christ.
I just because now you got my mind racing. See. So you got monotheistic Judaism, you got monotheistic Muslimism, but it still retains the essence of polytheism. It's still a God you got to give something to. You got to keep those laws. You got to follow Shara and say your prayers because He really needs you to do these things, and then maybe He'll do some good things for you.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how these monotheistic religions still keep the heart and essence of polytheism. Christianity is the only one to say, oh, no, not only is there just one God, but if that's true, then the whole way you've been doing religion from the beginning has been wrong.
Yeah.
It's not about anything we do for God.
Yeah, I mean even that word Islam means submit. I mean that's what religion.
There you go.
What the name means, So it's salvation, or some version of salvation found in submitting. What we do. But anyway, yeah, you're right. I do think though that I'm glad you brought up that word religious before. Because I think our culture today still has that veneer of being religious, and maybe it is more superstitious than anything. And no, it's not necessarily a following after a God. No, there's the growing number of atheists, right? People that say they don't believe in God, and yet there's still something that they put their trust in, right?
Yes.
And maybe it's, especially during this time of COVID, maybe it's medicine, and maybe it's taking precautions, maybe it's the economy, and we want that to bounce back. Whatever that trust is in, that we think is going to hold up our world right now. That's your God, whatever you trust in. But again, to recognize, no, it's not those things. No, it's God, the one true God. He's the one who has the whole world in His hands. And what I think is important too is, especially during this time of pandemic, is that phrase, the whole world. This is, I think, in our lifetimes at least, John, even your lifetime, this is the first time that really something has affected the entire world. I think back, World War II, perhaps that affected, most of the world. But yeah, in the past 70 years or so, no, this is it. This has affected the whole world. So I think, boy, an opportunity for us to proclaim, no, there's a God here who isn't just a local God or just a national God, but He is the God of the world, of the universe, and He's holding the world in His hands. I think that's so important to recognize during this time too. But I think the other thing that's important to recognize too, and I want to get to while we still have some time, is, that song, He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands that we talked about. So that's verse 1. Verse 2 of the song. Do you know what verse 2 is, John?
I have no idea. Okay. What is verse 2? This is
the top song in 1958. Verse 2 goes like this. He's got the itty bitty baby in his hands.
Oh, yes.
He's got the itty bitty baby in His hands. And it goes on. And what I think is so cool about that is that, we have a God who not only holds the whole world in His hands, but who holds the little bitty babies in His hands, who holds us as individuals in His hands. The same hands who holds the whole world, in other words, also hold you. And I think that's so important during this pandemic time too. To remember both things. God's got the whole world in His hands. He's the creator of heaven and earth. But guess what? God's got you in His hands too. As an individual, as a person that He dearly loves, whoever you are. So that it's important to remember both those things.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking of the passage from which maybe that song comes from. For God so loved the world, right?
Yeah.
But it goes on to say that He gave His only begotten Son so that whoever believes in Him. See, it's an individual thing, that they might not perish. Yeah. So that's a great thought, Matt.
Yeah.
It's not just, He's not just the God of Pan, the God of all, but He's the God of you. That's the personal thing. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And I as we close up, just kind of one story that I wanted to share, John. We have we've had one member who's been affected by COVID and passed away as a result of it. But his name was Lee, and suffering from dementia. He was in a very nice nursing home facility here in St. Louis. And unfortunately, the virus entered that facility, and he passed away. And the thing of it is, his family wasn't able to be there with him,
yes, that's
for a couple
tragedy,
months.
Yeah.
So he felt alone. His family felt as though he was alone. But that's again, this word of comfort that Lee and that you are not alone. That even though his family wasn't there to hold his hand at the time of his death, God still held him in his hands. I think of verses like Isaiah 41, where it says, I will strengthen you, I help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So again, just that promise that Paul helps to bring to light in the most unlikely of places, right, on the Areopagus with all those idols, that there's a God who holds the world in his hands, and he's the same one that holds you in his hands too.
And, that's the thing. The unknown God is no help to us, but our God, Jesus Christ, he is very much our personal God.
Exactly. And that's where God makes himself known as in Jesus, right? And all that his hands did is they healed and blessed, and as they held still to be nailed to a wooden cross, and as they were raised in those same hands that one day are going to welcome us into our eternal home in his return. Yep.
This has been Wrestling with the Base.